Hello, my name's Gemma and my daughter Jessica is in year 2 at St Dunstan's. I'm really delighted to be able to take this opportunity to talk to you on the theme of International Women's Day and choose to celebrate the achievements of women in our lives. The woman that I would like to celebrate today is Agnes Kreller. She was born in Lancaster on the 8th of March 1901, and although she's no longer alive today, this was actually 120 years ago this International Women's Day. She came from quite a large family by modern standards. She had 10 brothers and sisters, and she also began working at the Lancaster Moor Hospital at the age of 14. Now for us today that seems like a very young age to start working, but obviously at that time it wasn't unusual for people to start working at such a young age. She began training as a mental health nurse, and I think what's really interesting about the Lancaster Moor Hospital and as she began training there, but it was quite different to other mental health hospitals at the time. They were treating patients very differently to many other institutions. They were treating them with kindness and really trying to look for alternative treatments and therapies. Agnes is my great-grandmother and Jessica's great-great-grandmother. So I'm pleased to be able to tell you a little bit about her and her life. Um, It was very difficult and challenging at that time to work as a mental health nurse. It was very long hours, lots of really physical work and sort of cleaning and scrubbing, and really quite challenging at that time. And when she moved from Lancaster down to London, she went to work at the Maudsley Hospital in London as well. And again, this was a quite a new hospital. It opened very recently, and they were really interested in how to train nurses and had really innovative ways of training nurses and began to introduce new treatments for people with mental ill health. So it's really interesting that she worked in these two different hospitals that were both sort of leaders and leading the way in the way that we looked after people and helped people with mental ill health. She once told me a story about when she was working at the Maudsley, when she'd gone in to go and clean the room in the patient's in one of the patient's rooms, and she was told by the sister who was running the ward at the time not to turn her back on the patient. So she went in and she cleaned the floor and polished the floor, etc. And when she finished, she went to leave the room, and she'd forgotten just for a split second that she wasn't meant to turn her back on the patient, and in that time the patient actually hit her and broke her nose. So as she came out of the room, she had bloody uniform and a very sore nose, and the sister said to her, well, I told you not to turn your back. How long does it take you to walk home? And she said, it takes me 45 minutes. And the sister said, fine, I'll see you back here in 2 hours in a clean uniform. So that's exactly what she did. She walked home for 45 minutes, got herself changed, walked back, and she was back on the ward, dedicating her services to the patients within the 2 hours. So it was, I think it was a really challenging time, but also a really rewarding time. She often spoke very fondly about her time as a mental health nurse and how much she enjoyed caring for the patients and working in these two hospitals that were really leading the way. She met a man called Harry Aldrin, and they got married in August 1925. They then went on to have 3 children. Their oldest daughter, in the picture here in the middle, was my grandmother, and she really supported her family and the local community during the Second World War. My grandmother was evacuated in the early part of the war, but her twins, her very younger brother and sister, they stayed at home. And Agnes, supported her family. She supported the local community and sort of kept everyone's spirits up during the Second World War. She told a story once about her neighbours who had their house was hit by a bomb during one of the bombing raids during the Blitz, and they became trapped in the rubble within the house. They were fine. They were calling out. They were protected by some furniture, but she was there, sort of helping to clear the rubble and sort of get them out of this house. And another story that she talked about was when she'd gone to the loo, and she heard a very loud noise and saw a big flash of light, and she obviously knew that she was in danger, so she had to jump out of the window to jump down into the shelter that was in their garden below. So it's clear that she lived through a really, really challenging time, but actually that she really cared for the people and the family around her and her local community during this time. So to me, Agnes was a really inspirational woman. She was a great nurse, and she worked really hard to care for the patients that she looked after in all those years. She also cared for us very much as a family, and she was a real leader to us. She was always there for us whenever we needed anything. And she has really inspired me as well to care for others through her, hearing about her work as a mental health nurse. She's inspired me to want to care for others and support people who, may be going through mental ill health and having challenges of their own. And this is a picture of her taken in 1985, and this is her grandchildren, her great grandchildren, and the little girl in that picture there is me. And I think it's really great during this International Women's Day, celebration, that we really do celebrate women, and I want to celebrate her and actually all of the women who've contributed to the fantastic health service that we have today.